going on, boys and girls? It is Temporary Citizen. I'm here at Coast Power Sports, taking out a Kawasaki Z900. So let's jump on. First of all, I just want to say there's absolutely no way I would want to be a pillion on one of these. That is a purely aesthetic rear seat. That is not for use on road. I mean, you could. Alrighty, let's kick off. So, I'm going to be doing my best to compare this to the MT09. I feel that's probably the closest bike to this bad boy. Alrighty, so first off, this seating position. The seat's definitely a hard, sporty seat. You know, this bike is not pretending to be about comfort. It's not uncomfortable, but you know, Kawasaki are pretty race heavy these days, so you can tell by that mean looking dash and these cool lines. So what we've got is the Kawasaki Z900. It's definitely very similar to the MT09 in a lot of ways. Definitely got plenty of power, just like the Yamaha MT09, and it's just like the new MT09. It's definitely a bit controversial with its ugliness of its headlight. So I think this looks pretty cool. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I'd probably go as far to say as I like the look of this bike more than the MT09. Speaking of it, MT10 just cruises past us. So same sort of price, you're looking at probably 13.5 grand on road, depending on where you go. If you go down to the boys at Coast Yamaha, let them know that Temp Sit sent you and they'll probably look after you. I like this very minimal dash. You know, it's nice sometimes. It's also got a full Akro system on it, which sounds pretty nice. It doesn't sound as nice, as throaty as the MT09 does. It's a little bit more subdued in its sound, but that could change once we're up and boogieing. You also feel a lot more locked in cockpit-wise. The handlebars are a really nice height, but because of how your knees sit under the tank, well, my knees sit under the tank, it feels like it's more willing for you to lean over into. And it feels just a little bit more bent over than the MT09 does. Which is cool. So what do we got? We've got a gear indicator, revs, and fuel and temperature, and that's about it. I don't think it's even got any rider aids with it. Doesn't look like it does, which is cool. I mean, less stuff to go wrong. You definitely want to know how to ride before you jump on it. But that seating position also feels like it's not as quick to jump up as the MT09 is. You got a bit more weight up the front over that front wheel, which, you know, if you're all about wheelies, isn't the best, but at the same time helps keep it down. So hopefully my battery lasts throughout this video. But this is a cool looking bike, and it's also got ABS this model's got ABS on it. It's putting out roughly 120-ish horsepower, depending on your exhaust and tune and everything else. It's definitely cool looking, especially in this all black with a little bit hint of green on the frame. It is a pretty bike. Kawasaki always have made pretty cool, well, not always, but lately they've made pretty cool looking bikes. Yeah, that gets up in boogies, no doubt about that. So, because it's got this little headlight fairing on the top of it, you get a little bit of wind buffeting sitting around 100 k's. Nothing too chronic at your regular road legal speeds. Doesn't feel as light and agile as the MT09, but it feels a bit more planted. It feels less like it's gonna buck you off, which is probably why it doesn't need the same rider aids that the MT09 has. That bike's definitely a lot more aggressive with its throttling, but you know, this thing's still got plenty of torque. In top gear, it feels like you've got plenty to keep you going, which is good for your fuel economy. It means you can cruise in top and then open her up if you need. Definitely a very stable feeling bike. We'll see how it leans into these corners. So the other thing about these new Z900s is they're new. So if you're after more of a unique bike, this is probably the way to go over the MT09. You know, everyone's got an MT09 at this point. Not many people have the Z900, so for the same price, if you're brand new, I'd definitely be giving this a look in. Kawasaki tend to make pretty solid, reliable bikes. Yeah, that feels lovely. Just solid and planted into the corners. Definitely confidence inspiring. The frame just feels nice and rigid and there's not a lot of play in it, so you can just lean it over into the corners and trust yourself, which I feel, because the 09 is a little bit bumpier, it doesn't allow, and that could just be the seating position. But for me as a big dude, I got plenty of room to have my knees around. They're not banging into the side of the top of the tank, which is nice. I mean, this fuel cap just looks pretty. Yeah, this definitely, it feels a lot racier than the MT09. The MT09 doesn't feel like a race bike, but this feels more along that breadth. I'd probably be pretty confident taking something like this on a track. I feel like it's got enough to keep me happy and quick on a track and throw it into the corners and everything else. But it probably wouldn't be as nice to filter on as the MT09, because it's just got that, it feels like it's got a little bit extra weight to it in that slower speed manoeuvring. There's a little bit of lag in top gear when you're pulling on the throttle for it to get up and going. It doesn't have crazy amounts of torque on tap at the higher speeds. It definitely does down low. I'm definitely liking this bike a lot going into these corners. If you're looking for that 13 grand price point of bike and you want something that you'll be able to smash the hills every weekend with, without, you know, if you're getting a bit older or you're a bit bigger and you don't want that super sport, I think this is sort of the way to go. And whereas if you're looking for more of like a wheelie fun type bike, I'd say that the MT09's more along that. That's what that bike is aimed at, is your fun wheeling, whereas this is fun to ride fast because it gives you so much confidence in those speeds. I mean, the build quality on this looks absolutely great, you know, no complaints whatsoever. I'm not even too fussed about those big indicators because it fits into the lines of the bike, so they're not big dorky ones out here, you know, they fit into that angled front. Yeah, this has got a bigger bike feel to it than the MT09 does. Alright, we've got no one behind us. Let's go 0 to 100. Yeah, so that's alright. The dash also flickers at you when it's time to shift, which is a cool way of doing the shift light, because sometimes it's harder to see different stuff around, but when your revs are sitting there going at you, that's pretty handy. It's a pretty nice, neat, small dash, which is cool. And yeah, taking off then, it didn't feel like the front end, whereas doing on the same thing in the MT09, you know, it almost scares you a bit because it feels like it wants to come up the whole time. Which, you know, if you're a newer rider, this is pretty good. But this sits into those corners nicer than the MT09. It doesn't feel as light, which is what I'm used to. I'm used to heavier bikes, so I get more confidence when they're stable into a corner rather than these light tippy bikes. Obviously that's just personal experience and everything else though. So you can't do it here, but overseas I reckon I wouldn't recommend this as a first bike, but if you did, I don't think it's as likely to kill you as some other bikes, which is nice as long as you're smooth with that throttle. But there's also, I mean, that's tightenable, but there's a bit of play in that throttle cable. Obviously that's just a cable tightening. Actually, it doesn't look as throttle play doesn't look as adjustable. Maybe it's ride by wire. Who knows? Not me. Yeah, so when you're booking it a little bit, that exhaust sounds a lot better, but it's a bit more subdued at lower speeds and it's not as throaty. The sound sounds more like a four-cylinder, like whirring of induction noise rather than the like lumpy MT09 sound. Sorry for bringing up the MT09 so much, but that's basically this bike's direct competitor. This was what it's built to compete against. So the two biggest differences between this and the MT09 are looks, which, you know, if you say that that's not an important thing to you, you're probably lying, because you need to ride a bike that you find pretty. And how it handles. So this is, yeah, it definitely feels closer to a race bike and less like a wheelie king. Whereas the MT09 is probably a bit more fun to muck around on if you're confident, but not as good if you want to do serious riding through the hills or on a track or anything else. I'm not saying that either is incompetent at the other, but that's just how it feels. You know, there's way more power than you actually need on the streets on one of these bad boys. So that's not even really considering, like, being around that 120 mark. You know, I think it's a bit more than the MT09. But it's, once again, it's not a crazy amount of difference power-wise. So if you're looking at splitting hairs on weight and power, that's probably the last thing that you should worry about between these two. Yeah, no, so overall I'm pretty impressed with this. It feels a lot nicer to ride than the Street Triple. It feels like it's got a lot more power and torque to it. Feels that bit heavier and that bit more planted. I reckon the aggressive looks of it are really pretty. Some people don't like that headlight, but I think it looks mean as fuck. Yeah, so no complaints with those brakes. They probably could feel a little bitier, but they're going to stop you. Not the best feeling brakes I've felt, but they do the job, you know. Chuck braided lines on there if you want to improve a little bit. All in all, pretty good package. 13 grand, you're getting a 13.5 grand, and you're getting a lot of bike. And this is something that you'll be able to have for years. That seat though, that seat is very, very rough on your bum. I mean, I've only been riding for a little bit and it's already getting a little sore. So that's something else to keep in mind. If you're going to be doing a lot of Ks, maybe not the bike for you. Or, you know, you can find some way of padding that out so you can get gel inserts and make it a little comfier. That's probably my only gripe with this bike, is that the brakes feel a little meh and the seat isn't overly comfortable. And if you're planning on taking a pillion, don't bother. But other than that, if it's just you going for rides by yourself in the hills, this is absolutely a killer bike to have. Alright, well that's pretty much me done. Thanks for checking it out. Make sure to subscribe. Go to Coast Power Sports if you're looking to buy one of these bad boys. I'm sure they'll look after you. And let me know down in the comments what bikes you'd like to see me riding next. Thank you. Tempsits out. Peace.